Uber is a transportation service that works much like a taxi but has a convenient phone app that is used for ordering rides. Uber is most popular in urban cities throughout America, Europe, and Asia. It's a service that is quickly growing and pushing the old-school taxis out of business. Just like with any form of non-personal transportation, it has its dangers. There's no surefire way to know who you're in a vehicle with, and it could lead to some very terrifying situations. These 5 Uber customers had no idea just what kind of wild ride they were ordering. Number 5. The past background check. In November 2013, Davia Whitmere, a 28-year-old Uber driver, picked up his passenger in San Francisco's Castro district. When Whitmere and his passenger got into a heated argument about some vague topic, Whitmere pulled over and forced his passenger out of the car. The passenger then attempted to take a photo of the car, likely to show the police or Uber later. Whitmere allegedly proceeded to punch the passenger and elbowed him in the chest. At the time, Uber said they suspended Whitmere for a period, but insisted that police on the scene that day said no further action would be necessary. Whitmere was later charged in June 2014 after he committed another assault, this time unrelated to Uber, that involved a young woman. His charge was a misdemeanor battery count. After all of this news broke the surface, it came to be known that Whitmere had multiple drug-related felony convictions and, at the time of the assault, was on probation for unrelated battery charges. While Uber claims to check all their employees' backgrounds thoroughly and with top-notch systems, Whitmere seemed to somehow pass his check. This presents a horrifying reality that criminals can be slipping through the cracks. When you think you're safe, you have no idea who you're really with. Number 4. A racist Uber driver. Writer, activist, and lecturer at Howard University, Bridget Todd, published several tweets in late 2013 explaining her attack. She claims that she and her husband were riding in the back of an Uber in Washington, D.C. very late at night when the driver pulled her out of the car and allegedly began to choke her. Todd claims that she believes the attack was racially motivated because she is in an interracial relationship. She also admitted that her and her husband were slightly intoxicated, so their reaction to the situation was delayed and probably not very effective. Uber's CEO, Travis Kalanick, publicly responded by telling Natasha Tika of Valleywag.com that the attack, quote, was provoked by the passenger. In private emails between the CEO and his press team, however, Kalanick criticized the media for thinking that the company might be responsible for things that happen inside of Ubers, especially with, quote, these incidents that aren't even real in the first place. Basically, Kalanick brushed the whole thing off as Bridget Todd just being overly dramatic or possibly completely fabricating the story. This stirred huge controversy because, first of all, a company is always considered responsible for its employees and they should always do what they can to make things right, especially in such an extreme case as this. Thankfully, the victim in this case was not too seriously hurt, but the trauma that comes from an experience like this will probably haunt her for the rest of her life. Number 3. The anti-gay, anti-American driver. In February in Washington, D.C., Seth Bender got into an Uber he ordered. Not long after being inside the Uber, he made the mistake of burping. While this was probably rude, it was no excuse for the complete tirade that driver, Hamza Abu Sharia, went on. Sharia apparently went on a lengthy rant about how he hates Americans and homosexuals, and a number of other derogatory comments. Bender exited the vehicle, but Sharia was not finished. He allegedly slapped and spit on Bender before speeding off. Bender later took the driver and Uber to court in March 2013. He sued for roughly $500,000 in compensatory damages and $250,000 in punitive damages. However, in Uber's terms of service, it does claim that they are not liable for the actions of their drivers, and Sharia was immediately fired after Bender filed a complaint. It was never published whether Bender won his case, but either way, no amount of money could make up for the humiliation he probably felt throughout this whole event. Number 2. Uber driver plus hammer. A 35-year-old San Francisco resident by the name of Robert Chicas was physically attacked with a hammer by his Uber driver in September 2014. Chicas claimed that he was giving directions to the Uber driver and was admittedly frustrated. He told the driver he was going the wrong way, to which the driver responded by pulling over and telling Chicas to get out. Since he was already fed up at this point, he agreed to exit the vehicle. But the driver, Patrick Karaja, also got out of the vehicle and began hitting Chicas repeatedly with a hammer. Karaja quickly fled the scene, and Chicas woke up later in ICU with only bits and pieces of memory concerning what happened. He had to have reconstructive surgery as well as medical attention for damages suffered in his eye. An Uber spokesman claimed that their insurance provider tried to get in touch with representatives of both the passenger and the driver to try and resolve issues without court. Chicas' attorney, Harry Stern, made a valid argument stating that you can't offer this kind of service out into the marketplace, reap all the benefits and profits, and not take responsibility. That's pretty simple. The most ironic thing about all of this is that when Chicas received his bill for the Uber ride that ended in horror and blood, there was a $1 safety fee. Apparently, these common fees aren't going to very good use. Number 1. The Uber roller coaster. The latest and most popular thrill is no amusement park ride. It's an Uber ride. In July 2014, passenger Ryan Simonetti took an Uber ride he will never forget. It was a Monday around 1:15 p.m. when the whole ordeal began. Simonetti claims that he has always been a die-hard Uber fan, that he used Uber everywhere he went in the bustling city of New York. Simonetti and 2 colleagues approached the Uber and saw a taxi inspector speaking with the driver. They got into the car with Simonetti in the front seat, and the inspector walked away. He was likely going to his car to retrieve documents. As soon as the inspector was out of eyeshot, the driver took off. The inspector followed quickly behind with his lights on. As Simonetti questioned his driver in fear, the driver assured him, "Don't worry, he's not a real cop, it's not a huge deal," as he raced past a red light and accelerated well above the speed limit. This chase, like an episode of Cops, went on for about 15 minutes. Simonetti and his colleagues screamed at the driver in horror, begging him to at least slow down enough for them to jump out. However, the driver insisted that if he got stopped, he would be forced to pay a $2,000 fine. He also allegedly barely missed hitting other cars multiple times. At this point in the ride, the 3 passengers had no idea who they were really with, or if they would even make it out alive. Simonetti told the driver at one point, "I physically tried to force his leg to hit the brake. I ripped his pant leg off. I said, here's 2 options. You take this exit, or I'm going to knock the side of your head in. If we crash, but you're gonna kill us anyway." Lucky for them, the driver pulled over to an exit and let them out. The taxi inspector pulled in front of the Uber to prevent him from moving. But as soon as the passengers were out, he took off again, going the opposite way up the highway, only to later face consequences.